Bluff City Media presents the Two Buck Sports Show. Stepping up to the microphone are your hosts, Drew Gann and Rusty Witten. Now, let's get to the show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Two Buck Sports Show. I am your co-host, Rusty Buckets. I got my colleague here, Uncle Buck, checking in on the road for what is our favorite show every year. Uncle Buck, welcome to the show, sir.
What's going on, Buckets? I am in Huntsville, Alabama, the Rocket City here, just underneath the shadow of the rocket ship that you see on Highway 72 as you pull in. Yeah. What up, Elton John, my man? You know, wrote this song about Huntsville, Alabama, I heard.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah,
legends.
You know, the Brit himself wrote a song about Huntsville, Alabama. And so, yeah, I'm here for work, but thankfully I found some time here. I found me a comfy chair in my hotel room and was able to set up. So the Wi-Fi is not as good here. So if I get a little buggy, everybody, sorry, just bear with us. I'll come back. It's my worst feature is that I always just come back.
That's it, like a bad cold. We can't get rid of him, man. So I'll give him the hand signal, shoot him a text if he starts getting kind of wonky, and y'all can just listen to me yammer on and say whatever I want about our topics for today. So we'll start off our show, as always, with Best in Beef. We got a little bit of Grizzlies news. And then this show is the one that usually has the most fireworks. You know, The first year we did the show, we only got to talk about it immediately prior to the Egg Bowl. Last year, our preview of our two favorite college teams got spicy and went almost for 3 hours, but thankfully Uncle Buck has a pretty firm deadline today, so that's not going to happen today. But what I'm talking about is we're concluding our SEC previews today with our two favorite teams, your Mississippi State Bulldogs, Uncle Buck's Ole Miss Rebels, as we wrap up our SEC preview, because Drew, we made it, brother. We got college football this weekend with the game across the pond, Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. Don't care. College football is back.
Yeah, Florida State, Georgia Tech.
Sorry.
Yeah. Last year it was Notre Dame and Ireland.
That's right.
Is fitting. If you want to send Notre Dame back to Ireland, that'd be fine with me.
For good.
But, yeah, we made it, and I don't want to dampen, the excitement everybody's had for fireworks. I mean, it's Ole Miss versus State. But this year is going to feel a little different because Rusty's just going to be grasping at straws, trying to find a reason to look forward to the season here.
We'll see.
While my Ole Miss Rebels are SEC championship game bound or bust.
Bust indeed. Indeed. We'll talk about that here in a bit. But Drew, let's start our show like we always do. You set them up, I knock them down. What's our first segment here, sir?
Yeah, so we're best friends, and we use this to catch up just like any other phone call. So, Rusty, I want to know the best thing that happened to you this week, as well as the worst thing that happened to you this week, and I will share mine as well. We'll commiserate.
Yeah, so we always start on a positive note here. I'm going to lead off. My best of the week is I finally bit the bullet. I've been talking about it for a long time, and I finally got a new truck. My old one was starting to knock and bounce again in the front end, and I just sunk a couple grand in it back in June, and it started making the exact same sound and vibration. And I was like, I can't do this, man. I'm not going to just keep putting a couple $1,000s in it every few months just to keep something going. I use things a lot until they wear out, but at some point, like the great philosopher. There it is. Wow, what a word.
Yeah.
The great philosopher Kenny Rogers once said, you got to know when to hold them, you got to know when to fold them. And I folded in and traded in my 2014 on a 2022 Ram 1500. I love it, dude. Like, I've never had a fancier truck. I kind of got smitten with the bells and whistles, but it's like my dad said, I'm in my truck probably 40% of my day right now with what I do for work. And so it's nice to have nice features. This beautiful weather we've had this week in Memphis, I've had my sunroof open, I've had my windows down. It's been really nice. And I freaking love that truck, man. It was a great decision on my part.
Yeah, I'm almost ashamed to say it, but I am a bells and whistles guy. Like, I just love trinkets. And, it's not what makes the truck dependable or worth your money.
No,
but it is fun to have heated. Once you get used to heated and cooled seats, like, I don't know how you can go back. Like,
oh my gosh,
it's just
the cooled seat's the best thing ever. When it's been 90 degrees and I can hop down on a cooled seat, The heated steering wheel is great after a long day of working with my hands on patience. I've got a powered tailgate. I didn't know that was really like a thing, but it's awesome.
I forget how hard you work with your hands. What are you? Are you a bricklayer or a
physical therapist? It's pretty hands-on. I'm just here to tell you, it's pretty hands-on. You can say what you want. Yes, I ain't swinging no hammer, but when 2-ton Tina's laying over there and you got to work on her below her back, you understand.
Ooh, you just violated HIPAA. Tina is pissed right now. Yeah, so I'm happy for you. As everybody knows, I have 4 kids, and so a new truck is not in my future. But I am not I'm not a small man here. I am happy for you. I'm not spiteful. So congratulations. This now makes our friendship has spanned 3 different Dodge trucks.
It has.
So, maybe we'll make it to 6 one day. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. I've only had 4 trucks my entire life. I'm 37. This is truck number 4. You've been a part of the 05, the 14, and now the 22. Yeah. So
I remember when you were stoked about the gray one.
Yeah. No, it's funny. When I was test driving this one, the salesman got out of the one that I bought, and it was parked right. I parked it right next to mine. He looks at this one, he looks at my truck, he looks back, he goes, "You're buying the same truck. It's just newer." I'm like, I know what I like, man. I like silver Rams.
Yeah. So my best of the week, I was really nervous you were going to take it, but thankfully you didn't. I think because this is mine. If I wanted. We talked about it Wednesday on the Daily Grind. We previewed it Friday on our show. My favorite day of the year is fantasy football draft day. And I know as we're getting into football season, everybody's already dreading hearing people on podcasts and shows talk about their fantasy football team because no one cares about your fantasy football team. And I understand that. However, I'm not going to get on this show every week and tell you about my fantasy football team, but I'm going to tell you about the one Sunday a year where we get together and throw a party and celebrate another year of fantasy football and draft our teams. And fantasy football is so much more than football to me. And that's the reason why college football and sports and just anything is more about the thing that's on the TV. It's less about that and more just about the people you do it with. And we're going on year 9 of the League of Avengers. And for the second straight year, we've always gotten together those who could to draft and done it on our computer. For the second year, we were able to do a totally offline draft where we were able to just be with the people in person and draft our teams and take our time and rag each other and just hang out, and eat pizza, have some drinks. Most of the people that are at that party, I have been friends with for longer than the League of Avengers have been around. However, I can only count on seeing them for sure at this party every year. Rusty's the exception. I see Rusty a lot now that he moved back home, but a lot of these guys, we've all got families. We're all busy, and we get to come into Andrew Farrell's house one Sunday a year, and it's everybody's top priority this one time, and we just make the most out of it, and it's a lot of fun, and I feel like I have an amazing fantasy football team after.
Yeah, I mean, for all of Uncle Buck's flaws, and we could do a whole show on those, he does throw a mean fantasy football draft party, complete with pizza, like I said, beverages, had a big TV with a website that we use specifically for our draft where we can pass the iPad around, put in your picks, and it gives you drama because it's just like the show, just like the production of the NFL draft, right? Like as you start typing the name, it says the pick is in, and everybody in the room just kind of stops and looks at the screen. Then when you hit draft, they pop up there with their picture. It was really well done. There were some questionable descriptions of some of the league members in the preview, the show preview. There were some really funny ones. But it was really, really good. Mine was tall, dark, and the opposite of handsome. And I vehemently disagree with that.
Stand by that.
Vehemently disagree with that. But it was a good time. I got a good fantasy team. Like the more I look at it and kind of play with the lineup, the Merc with the mouthpiece is going to be a tough out this year.
Yeah. So I'm just excited. I'm always giddy when I leave. It's one of those, a party's good when everybody just kind of lingers afterwards, and that's kind of what happens, as everybody kind of left, even Rusty after you left, I went back in to pack up my stuff, and Zach and Pat and Easy and Mutters, we're all just looking at the computer screen making trades, trying to make trades,
Yeah.
It just, everybody lingers. That's how you know it was a good party. And so I'm thankful for those guys. I'm thankful. It's worth every bit of effort. We all do a ton of stuff in our daily lives that require effort. And it seems like very rarely do you feel like that was worth it. And every year, all the prep, all the, organizations that go into getting 12 people at one location, and with us all being in our 30s, married with kids, it's all worth it. And so that's my best of the week. It's probably my best for the next several weeks. And so, but let's take the edge off a little bit. What hurt you the most this week?
Well, so mine's
Is it
still
also buying a new truck?
Mine's still coming. I'm not a guy that like does a lot of big purchases or does a lot of stuff. That's just not who I am. And I have not had a truck payment since early 2021. And September 15th is coming. Winter is coming. Like on the Game of Thrones that I've been just obsessively watching for the last several weeks. We finished season 6 and we're starting season 7, and it's just freaking wild, man.
It is.
But September 15th is coming, and that little book's going to come in, and I got to start making that month to month. And it hadn't killed my vibe yet. I'm still excited about purchasing the truck, but I'm not looking forward to that first truck note since early 2021.
I'm telling you, dude, as somebody that's got a note and has had one for, I didn't have a car payment for 28 years or, then right after my wife and I got married, I bought her a car, and ever since then we've made a payment every month. And the older I get, the more kids that we have, nothing would, I understand why my dad every Christmas was just like, give me money.
Yeah.
Just let me, I need to pay some of this stuff off. I get it more than ever. So
yeah, I mean, I'm like you,
but
I didn't have a note. My parents bought my first vehicle, bought me a truck when I graduated high school. That 14 was the first vehicle I ever bought. And so I had a payment from when I bought it in like mid 2016 until I paid it off in early 2021, which was about a year early. And then now I'm acquiring another payment. So again, if you want to contribute to the $2 Sports Truck Fund, we'll put a QR code in the bottom of the screen. You can scan and send it to my Venmo.
Yeah, we've also got student loans as well. So, houses. Anyways, that's enough. My
sorry.
for the week.
Hang on, real quick. Other slash best of the week. We've talked about it numerous times on the show. I no longer, as of September 27th, I will no longer have a condo at the beach. I have officially agreed to a price on my condo. Inspection passed. We're kind of buttoning up the last couple of things. Completely forgot about that in the hype of the truck. But I will no longer have my condo at the beach. It's bittersweet, but paying a mortgage and rent in Memphis sucks. And so I'm glad to stop that.
Yeah, Rusty is now flush with cash. So
not yet. It's coming, but not yet.
So that's awesome. Happy for you for that. It's all coming up aces for buckets. Let me tell you how my life sucks. So I'm staying in a hotel room right now. And have you ever noticed when you're in a hotel room, you can never find the light switches?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I have searched for an hour last night trying to find how to turn on the dang lights. Why in the world? There's a light switch. I hit the light switch by the door, and all I did was turn on the little doorbell outside for the hearing impaired. Like, it's not even a light switch. And so I came in. I was like, all right, let's try the bathroom. And it turned the bathroom light on, and that didn't do anything. The light switch is in between the beds over here on the lamp, and you have to turn that on and then go to each lamp and turn them on. Jeez. And so, it took me like 45 minutes to get lights on in this place today, just getting ready for this show that I assumed everybody wanted to see me on.
It might look better if we just made it a radio show, but for some reason, Busty Media wants us to show our faces, so here we are. But I can just see you walking around too, like clapping, like.
Well,
didn't work.
You've been to my house before. All my lamps are like Alexas. I've got them wired in. I'll walk in, and it's like that Smart House Disney show. It's going to revolt at some point. But I just have Alexas through my house, and their only purpose is to act as an intercom to get my children
Yeah.
and to turn on my lamps.
If you're curious, just think about the Jetsons we watched growing up minus a conveyor belt, and that is Uncle Buck's house in Ripley.
yeah, that's pretty much it. We sunk a lot of money into Alexas and smart light bulbs. But everything else,
everything else is not smart.
Normal. Yeah, it's very, very dumb. Very dumb appliances.
Yeah.
So that's our best and beef of the week. We're going to touch a couple Grizzlies topics before we get into the grand poobah, the grand finale, the Ole Miss versus Mississippi State kind of battle royale that we do, where we preview both of our teams. First off, we just have to address it because it's been addressed on every single Memphis-based podcast show and news broadcast. Ja Morant and Zach Edey were videoed in the lab working on pick and rolls, and it got everybody hot and bothered.
Oh man, working on pick and rolls, post entry pass, lobs, like follows where Ja was crashing, Edey was coming in behind him, clean it up. Like it made me fired up for late October when that season actually kicks off, man. If that's the one thing we missed without Steven Adams. We just didn't have that big screening presence and that big lane presence. And buddy, we replaced it with more size than Zach Edey, but he just looks so fluid and so smooth next to Ja that they look like a match made in heaven for their skill sets. And it was awesome to see them in Dallas working on what they're going to need to do this fall in order to make it work with both of them on the floor. Dude, I was so stoked when I saw that.
Yeah, and I said this on the Daily Grind on Wednesday morning, and it's just nice to see it because it's all theoretical. Everybody's got a hot take when the Grizzlies used the number 9 pick to draft Zach Edey, a 7'5" big man out of Purdue, 4 years player in college, and everybody's got their hot takes. I had mine. You had yours, and ours differed in a lot of ways than the general consensus. But it was, since then you've only got theoreticals. This should work. This may do this. This may do that. We've just talked ourselves to death about Zach Edey and Ja Morant. So it was nice, even for a 30-second clip, just to see that they were actually working on it.
Right.
That to see that they had arranged time to get together in Dallas, Texas, of all places, at the SMU practice facility there, practice court there, just to get there and to work on it. It showed, to me, it showed a lot of leadership from Ja. It showed that he made an effort to take in the young fella and say, it shows a lot of awareness and leadership. It's like he knows this is a big season for him. This is a redemption tour for him. This is a piece to the puzzle that's going to be here for at least 5 years. And if we're going to reach the pinnacle, if we're going to go to the mountaintop, we're really going to make a push, then it's going to revolve heavily on whether or not Zach Edey works in this offense. Yeah. And so for him to seemingly realize that, understand it, and facilitate a relationship and a working relationship and hopefully a friendly relationship, it says a lot about Ja Morant as a leader, and that's not anything that anybody's had to say positively about Ja Morant in a long time.
Yeah, and because of my interactions about Zach Edey on Twitter, I've catch those suggested accounts up there, and I've seen some Purdue accounts pop up. And one the other day had a great video of Zach Edey running a similar offense when Jaden Ivey was still at Purdue a few years ago.
Yeah,
and
they're similar.
It works, man. Like he's so smart with it, and you could tell, like even on some of the clips that they had on that video, that like Edey would reposition after or go wide or go underneath or follow behind Jaden, just kind of playing off of what Ivy was doing. And it looks so much, like you said, what Ja does. Obviously not quite to the scale that Ja does, but Edey's smart. He knows how to play this style of offense. He knows how to follow a slasher like Ja, clean up after him, be that lob threat for Ja. And seeing them working on that already, combined it with that Purdue video that I saw, dude, I'm hyped, man. I'm going to be there at the home opener, and I couldn't be more excited for it now after seeing that.
It's the last thing I'll say, and I just want to I just want to say it as we go into the season. Rusty and I were not big fans of this draft pick. In the moment, I did not see Zach Edey as the fit that I wanted on this team. But I'm just saying this to let everybody know that we are Grizzlies fans and we are excited.
Yeah.
We have turned the page not because analytically we have been convinced, but it's because we're Grizzlies fans. And if this team is going to really charge and be as good as we think they are going to be this year, then
we need him.
Then we are Zach Edey fans.
That's it.
And we are rooting for it hard. And we're here for the Ja Morant redemption. We're here for Zach Edey to prove all of the naysayers wrong, including us. And I would gladly eat crow.
Yeah, absolutely. And the small sample size we got in Summer League really helped, really start to shift my focus. Watching him stand up for Jake LaRavia only tells me that he's going to do that for Ja even more so. Absolutely, man. We root for Andre, and yes, like I said on draft night on Twitter, you can check my feed. I wasn't happy, but I said, listen, tonight we mourn. Tomorrow night he's one of us. Once he puts that Memphis on his chest, I'm all in. I'm going to root for this to work, and I think it can. Drew, earlier this week on the Daily Grind, I think it was Wednesday, we talked with Luke about the schedule, and we went game by game. If you hadn't watched it, go back and check it out. It was a great segment where we talked about games and stuff, and we felt like we were being kind of homerish there for a while. At one point, we had them 17-5 and 21-9, and if that's the case, man, we're going to be incredible. But we kind of came to the conclusion that we're going to finish somewhere around 50-32, maybe 52-30, just depending on how the cookie crumbles. And I feel like that's a pretty accurate representation of where this team could be. It also could be higher than that, but I think we all agree that we should hammer the over, which is 47.5 through DraftKings. And after going through the schedule, it didn't change my mind that I should, move to the under.
Yeah, I mean, it's an 82-game season. There's going to be highs and lows in every single season. And, if there's no lows, then you end up with the 73-9 Warriors, but
that's it.
Which you never expect,
No.
But I just think that this team is going to be good. The only question I have is, will the record reflect it? Because I think the West is really good.
It is.
We are fans of two SEC football teams, and a lot of times the conferences don't look as good on paper because everybody's good. You get everybody's best shot. So, I think there may be a little bit of SEC West, former SEC West in the NBA Western Conference this year. And so we're excited about it. We're going to get into it come October.
Yeah, buddy. And the schedule is very favorable. I think the three of us were kind of surprised at how favorable it really stacks up. We have some back-to-backs, including Adam Silver lying to us and saying there would be no back-to-backs after a nationally televised game, and it happens to us 5 times. But we get a lot of favorable games at home. We get a lot of favorable matchups. Our road trips aren't quite as bad. It just feels like the schedule sets up pretty well for us, and I think that 50-plus wins is a real possibility from a team that's a very good regular season team. We're one injury riddled. We should almost have to put an asterisk on last season because of what all happened. But when we were fully healthy, we were a 56 and a 51 win team without a ton of effort. We just ran out of steam and got hurt in the playoffs. And so you're goofy if you think that this team is not going to make some noise in the playoffs and be one of the better teams in the playoffs if we're healthy. Because we've belabored it to no end. But if Ja doesn't get hurt, Dylan doesn't matter. Steve-O doesn't get hurt. We beat the Warriors. We definitely beat the Lakers, and we continue playing basketball. But we'll see come October. A lot of fun basketball ahead of us for Grizzlies fans. You had one other topic about Desmond you wanted to touch before we move on into the meat and taters of this show.
Yeah, it's just nice to see that guys like Desmond Bane get some credit, and you just kind of take it where you can find it. And I saw where there was a poll put out, or a ranking rather put out, for top shooting guards in the league, according to Hoops Hype. So I mean, whatever. But again, you take it where
you can get it.
You take it where you can get it. They have him the 6th best shooting guard in the NBA, which for Desmond Bane, as far as other lists go, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. There's only one player that I think I could make an argument that he's better than. Here's their top 5. Anthony Edwards, Devin Booker, Donovan Mitchell, Jaylen Brown, and Jalen Williams. So maybe you can get him to 5, but I don't know that I can get him past that. So I think that's a lot of credit to Desmond Bane and the work that he's put in.
And it needs it, because you watch, we Luke and I talked about some NBA 2K ratings on Tuesday's Daily Grind, and they didn't have him as one of the best premier shooters in the league in the video game. And so he didn't get the hype that he's getting there. So, yeah, like you said, it's hoops hype, but who cares? Fox Sports put us 24th in the league, and so we discount them. We don't care about them anymore. Hoops hype, right. You're now in the fold. Welcome to the family.
Yeah. So that's all the Grizzlies talk we've got today. Stick with us through the break. We're going to talk Ole Miss and Mississippi State football. We're going to preview it. We're going to give our wins and losses, our take on the team and the players that are going to be suiting up in uniform. We went through all of the SEC. We're just leaving this last. Just want to give you a quick disclaimer as football season gets here. We are comprehensive college football is what we're going to do. We're not just Ole Miss. We're not just Mississippi State, although these are the teams that we are fans of. And so we're kind of set this episode aside for us. But every week we're going to talk SEC football. And we may not talk about Ole Miss in some weeks, and we may not talk about Mississippi State in some weeks. We are going to be talking SEC football. This one episode is just for your host.
For us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So stick with us through the break here. When we come back, we're going to talk Ole Miss.
I've seen some videos. I know they had it at AAC Media Day. Seth played Commissioner Pernetti. You didn't jump on the sticks there?
Yeah, I have not partaken in it. I've warned our players, hey, once it gets to midnight, shut the damn thing off and get some sleep.
I will tell you, it is difficult to shut that thing off. It's a great game. I don't know if you've seen your ratings or anything, kept up with it. They've got every uniform possible. We're the highest rated G5, so they think very highly. It's one of my favorite games, so I had to get a new system for it. I've created a dynasty, but defense is impossible. It is, Coach, I couldn't stop the FCS Pandas.
Well, I mean, we got to teach you some defensive skills.
I know, I do. I will not be applying for any defensive analyst roles, and I do not envy Jordan Hankins whatsoever.
So you won't be in the stands yelling, play defense anymore. You're like,
hey, I get it. I get it now.
There's going to be, right, everybody else tells me how to coach a game and how to play it. Now it's twofold. Right now, everybody's, you should have run the, what about the smash pattern on 3rd and 6, Coach? What do you think? I'm like, oh boy, now everybody's going to have answers, and I can't wait. And
you got to send over your college football 25 resume before you can give any sort of advice to Coach on what they need to be doing.
Tune in to Tigers Untapped with TJ Willis and Trey Lasley every Wednesday at 3 p.m. on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
What does Team USA basketball look like for you in 2028?
At guards, you loaded. You got Ja Morant gonna be on their team. You got Anthony Edwards gonna be on the team. But Jackson Tatum and Jaylen Brown revenge tour. If they decide.
Point guard from New York is gonna be there.
It's more so who you gonna have as the. I guess that's why Devin Booker would have to be there. Anthony Edwards. You'll need someone who's previously played on the Olympic team to provide that veteran, because there's a different game. Not too different. It's still basketball at the end of the day, but it is a form of basketball that most of them players hadn't played in the actual Olympics yet. What USA needs to do, they need to get most of these players, and hopefully they can agree to it. That's probably their struggle now, is to play on the FIBA teams. Because the thing the other countries have the advantage on, the continuity, they all have the chemistry once you get to the Olympics, and USA always, it's a whole different team outside Anthony Edwards and
they do need to get them to say, look, y'all, let's run this twice.
Tune in to the Anthony Sane Show Wednesdays and Fridays at 12 p.m. weekly on the Bluff City Media YouTube channel.
Welcome back, everybody, to the $2 Sports Show. That's just your reminder. We got a lot of other great content creators on this network. BluffCityMedia.co is your hub for all of that. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you click subscribe and notify. Make sure you subscribe as an insider, BluffCityMedia.co. So The time has come, Uncle Buck. It is our time to shine, talking about our favorite teams. I'm going to concede the floor. We're going in alphabetical order. That's how we've been doing all of our previews so far. I'm going to let you go first. I'm going to shut up, make your case for Ole Miss before we dive into the schedule.
Well, first I'm going to make my case for you going back to elementary school because M comes before O.
We're going by Mississippi and Mississippi State, bruh.
Okay. I guess I'll talk about my Mississippi Rebels. Nobody calls them that. Okay. But I'll gladly go first because when I'm done, you're going to want to cancel your season.
Oh boy.
So, I think it's important to remember where we started. So Ole Miss went 11-2 last year in the 23-24 NCAA football campaign. It's the first time in school history that they have won 11 games, and it was the first time they had won 10 games in the regular season. And so you're kind of highs of highs leaving that. You win a Peach Bowl in dominant fashion over a Penn State team that is a Big Ten almost powerhouse every year, consistently top 10 team in the nation. And you're riding pretty high. But you could tell in the back of Lane's mind, there was only one game that really stood out, and that was the Georgia game. Georgia beat the absolute snot out of Ole Miss in Sanford Stadium last year, and whereas we thought we were good, you really could tell that we did not have the players.
It was still a different class.
Yeah, it was a totally different class. You didn't have the players, especially in the trenches, to compete for a title. And every coach says that the goal is to compete for a title. But when you match up against a team like Georgia and they humiliate you like that, it becomes clear, if you're honest with yourself, like, this cannot win a title. And if I'm saying that's a goal, I've got to do more work.
Right.
And so that took us into the offseason. And the offseason started with the transfer portal and seeing what players are going to leave. Ole Miss lost Quinshon Judkins. He was a over 1,000-yard rusher. He's incredible. I'm not going to take anything away from him. He's
an absolute cheat code on NCAA 25.
Right. But he's just a really good running back, and Ole Miss lost him. And so get out in front of that. I mean, you're down your best running back, arguably the best running back in the SEC.
Mm-hmm.
But then you look at your other weapons, and what I think Lane Kiffin did an amazing job at this year was that he kept everyone else. So looking at the returning players for Ole Miss, one, you've got Jackson Dart, who is an all-SEC caliber player. He is an all-NCAA caliber player returning into this season. You know, projecting forward, he's definitely could be in the class of all NCAA quarterback by the end of the season. He had 3,300 yards passing. He threw for 65% completion percentage, 23 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. He rushed for 400 yards with 8 rushing touchdowns. I mean, the guy's just an absolute baller. He's tough as nails. He's everything that his preconceived notion as a USC transfer was wrong about. You know, Everybody thought he may be soft, snowflake, Cali guy. But he's like, no, I'm not from California. He said, I'm from Utah. I'm from the country. And he's got country strong in him. And
he just showed up and took that job, man.
He is a great leader for this team. And he's got plenty of toys. Despite Quinshon Judkins leaving, he's got toys. Returning, Ulysses Bentley. He was the number 2 last year. He averaged over 7 yards a carry. He had 540 yards and 4 touchdowns. He's going to be dynamic. He is a speedster. But it's going to be more of a running back by committee this year. Henry Parrish, former Ole Miss running back who transferred to Miami, has come back. He's another burner, kind of scat back kind of guy. But look, the wide receiver room, that's what I want to spend a lot of time on. You lost nobody other than Dayton Wade, who was an undersized playmaker. He was great. College great.
Zachary Franklin?
He never panned out. He was going to be the big name transfer last year, but he just never really panned out. But he didn't leave. Trey Harris, 54 receptions for 985 yards and 8 touchdowns for Ole Miss. Jordan Watkins, 53 catches, 741 yards and 3 touchdowns. and Caden Priestcorn at tight end, he had NFL dreams that he put on the back burner. Has a
Former Memphis Tiger.
Yeah, former Memphis Tiger from Michigan. He's got a second kid on the way, and you're telling me that you got this guy to forego an NFL contract to come back to Ole Miss. Like, he's buying into something, and I'm sure he was paid handsomely.
Yeah.
He had 30 receptions for 450 yards and 4 touchdowns, 3 of which were in that Peach Bowl game that I referred to. So they are returning 58% of the catches, 64% of the yards, and 68% of the touchdowns from last year's staff. And then he recruited other players. So you bring in Juice Wells, who otherworldly. In 2021, Juice Wells had 78 catches for 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns. In 2022, 63 receptions for 900 yards and 6 touchdowns. And in 2023, he was injured, only had 3 catches. He's dealt with some nagging injuries. That's what happened his sophomore year and obviously his junior year here at South Carolina. So you're hoping that he stays healthy because he is dynamic. He is a deep threat. He is just wide open. There are some young guys. Caden Lee, who is wild at camp, who is a homegrown guy, came out of high school to Ole Miss to look forward to. You got a Virginia Tech transfer at tight end to kind of spell Caden Priestcorn, and you've still got Hudson Wolf, who is a 5-star, depending on the recruiting site you use, 4 or 5-star, from right up the road in Savannah, Tennessee at Hardin County High School, who is going to come back, and hopefully he stays healthy. The offensive line is probably where you're going to see the second most impact made out of the transfer portal. They're returning all 5 starters, including 3 of them. So Jeremy James has 49 straight starts. Micah Pettis is preseason All-SEC. He's a redshirt junior in his 4th year. Caleb Warren and Reese McIntyre are entering their 6th season of college football, and Eli Acker his 5th season. So you've got experience forever. But then you go and get Diego Pounds from North Carolina. He played every game last year on the offensive line for North Carolina. That offense had the best passing attack in college football, and he blocked for the 5th highest rusher in college football last year. You got 2 Washington offensive linemen who started in the national championship game for Washington. That offensive line won the Joe Moore Award for the best offensive line in college football, and you got 2 of them to transfer to Ole Miss. But the biggest impact you're going to see at Ole Miss, and we're talking about, remember I talked about the Georgia eye-opening experience. It was the trenches that they dominated us. The defensive line is going to be a top-tier defensive line in college football. Pro Football Focus rates them as the number 5 defensive line in college football, and the second only to Georgia in the SEC. You're returning Jared Ivey, who led the team in tackles for loss and sacks last year. You're returning J.J. Pegues, Oxford High School to Auburn, back to Ole Miss. He rushes for touchdowns, and he stuffs the running lanes on the defensive line. He's a big boy. It was announced today that he is your Chucky Mullins Award winner for this year, which is the highest honor that can be given to a defensive player at Ole Miss every single year. Just tribute to the late Chucky Mullins and the courage and the heart that he played with. So he will be wearing the 38 badge on his jersey this year. Suntaran Perkins is going to move to defensive line. He was a true freshman last year and got a lot of playing time. You got to think you've got to show a lot of promise in today's college football to play SEC football as a true freshman when you have your pick of the litter, for Ole Miss's cases, with the transfer portal. They're moving him to defensive end this year. I expect him to have massive sack numbers. He's got the prototype of a Micah Parsons. He's going to look undersized compared to left tackles, but he will beat them around the edge every single time. Fast dude. Fun stat, Xavier Harris comes back. Nobody cares, really, but he blocked 3 field goals last year for Ole Miss. Just a specialist. Yeah, specialist. But then you go and get the best defensive lineman in the portal, Walter Nolan from Texas A&M. He is just a lane clogger. He is your prototypical he looks kind of short, but built fast. I mean, Ole Miss fans, he's like a bigger Isaac Gross, if you remember him. I mean, you're talking disruptor right in the A hole there. A gap.
A gap. Pause.
Yeah, I knew it soon as I was like, that doesn't sound right. A gap.
You're coming up on 9 minutes on this dialogue, so we expected something like that.
And then you got Florida's best defensive end. His name is Princely, and I'm going to try to say his last name because I wrote it as how it was said. Umamielen. Umamielen. Maybe. Okay, whatever.
I like your mommy Ellen better.
Yeah, your mommy Ellen. Your mama Ellen.
I like that better.
He had 11.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks last year. He's a big, long defensive end that's just wreaks havoc off the edge. You're going to put him on one side. You're going to have Suntaran Perkins on the other side. And then you're going to have Jared Ivey. I mean, you're just going to have a lot of toys to play with right there on the defensive line. They got Chris Hardy, who was all whatever conference Jacksonville State is, Sun Belt, I think. First team all conference,
right?
Yeah. So
if you can't beat him, recruit him.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna hang on to that one, huh? That was like 2011. Okay, that Ole Miss lost to Jacksonville State. The AKC logo. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
It's gonna be on the 50-yard line. Everybody, go look up Jacksonville State AKC.
It's awesome. I sent it to you. Yeah. It's awesome, man. Yeah. It's gonna be so good.
It stands for ass kicking chicken.
I was about to say, it took me a minute to get there, but yeah, man.
So, a defensive back, you returning.
At this point, our mamas have tuned out, so you can say ass kicking chicken.
Ole Miss is returning their 2 best corners with John Saunders and Trey Washington. Trey Washington was their leading tackler last year. They got Trey Amos. It's a name to remember. He's an Alabama transfer cornerback. He's going to be starting for the Rebs this year. Also, Brandon Turnage was a Alabama turned Tennessee ball, turned Ole Miss Rebel. Also played in Oxford for Lafayette High School. He's going to be back. And Pooh Paul. Pooh Paul is, as a true freshman last year at Arkansas, led them in tackles. He is going to come in and play middle linebacker for Ole Miss. I think it's not a long shot to say that he's going to lead the team in tackles this year. He's everything that you want it to be as a middle linebacker. He's intuitive. He's quick. He gets to the ball and he wraps up and takes you to the ground, and nobody misses. He doesn't miss tackles. So that's kind of the outline. Yeah.
Just a couple quick thoughts. You're going to need the help on defense. For as good as your offense was last year, finishing 18th in earned points per play or expected points per play, first in explosive pass rate last year at PFF at 22.8% of your plays were explosive pass plays. Defense was just kind of average at best, finishing 57th in expected points per play, 63rd in yards per play, 57th in successful plays allowed and explosive runs allowed, and then 70th in explosive pass plays allowed. So you had to hit the portal to fix that. You had to hit the portal to fix that.
That's all true. But if you could look at that ranking as a line graph from the start of the season to the end of the season, you ended the season well. It was the first season under a new defensive coordinator. By the time you got to that Peach Bowl against Penn State, that team was playing really solid defense. By the time they played Mississippi State, they were not worried about Mississippi State scoring. You know, they got good. They did not start good. They got good.
I agree. And it's always been like Pete Golding's thing at Alabama was always that he could recruit, but he never could tie it all together. And so last year was different. It kind of bucked the trend as it got better throughout the year. But this is the year where he's going to earn that paycheck, because if he's ever going to have an elite level defense, it feels like this is the year at Ole Miss. At Alabama, they have the talent, but it feels like with what Ole Miss has done in the transfer portal, the momentum they have going to the season, like this is make or break for Pete Golding if he's going to prove that he is an elite DC at the SEC level.
Well, as an Ole Miss fan, if you're wanting to be optimistic about Pete Golding, this is what I think. So it's very hard, and you can look for the last 20 years to be Nick Saban's defensive coordinator, because it's not your system. It's not, you're not necessarily calling the plays. It's always going to be Nick's thing. And so as an Ole Miss fan, one, I think that players win games, not scheme. I think if you have the more better players, you're going to win the lion's share of games. And so for Pete Golden, it's situational. You've got players to compete and to win big at Ole Miss this year. You need health, and you need important play calling, which is, critical situations, third and shorts, goal line stuff, red zone. That's where you want to be good. And so you've got the players to play in between the 20s with anybody. And so if I'm Pete Golding, be opportunistic and try to get as many red zone turnovers as you can. Be efficient. And I think he's going to have enough players in a 2 deep or even 3 deep at some positions that he can stay fresh as well. And that could limit the impact of some injuries.
And in a professional transition, I think that the schedule sets up very favorably for Ole Miss to flex and do a lot of things that you're talking about, and allow growth to happen throughout the year, for this team to get better as the year goes on. The schedule is not one of the toughest that we've seen. There is a couple stretches in there where it gets real a little bit, but honestly, Drew, looking at this schedule, it's not that bad.
Yeah, so we've went through 14 SEC teams so far on the 2 Buck Sports Show, and I've seen many schedules that I would not trade Ole Miss's for. This schedule is totally manageable. So Ole Miss is over under, according to DraftKings or FanDuel, whichever one, 9.5.
9.5. PFF has them projected at 8.1 wins, which I thought was interesting. It's a little lower than I thought it would be, but they have them projected at 8.1 wins.
I'd be curious to see that on a game-by-game basis. That's for another show, though. So our formula, or my formula rather, when I'm looking at wins and losses, is I look at absolute wins. You go down this schedule. It starts at home against Furman, and then at home against Middle Tennessee State. That's 2-0. I don't think there's no other way around that. If you lose one of those, then you're going to have a mutiny on your hands. Then you go to Wake Forest. You should win that game. I mean, just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And then you have Georgia Southern at home, 4-0. Anything less than 4-0 is a horrible mistake for Ole Miss. Then you start the SEC season. I do not like that you've got all 4 non-conference games as weeks 1 through 4. I just don't like it.
That doesn't set
I love
up well.
being able to throw like a Furman game on November 23rd. I want to play. I like to have that no-name team or Vandy late. Just gives you an extra breather, I guess.
Before you play the rivalry game and move on.
Right.
Yeah.
But because you've got 4 non-conference games in weeks 1 through 4, week 5 starts off with Kentucky coming home. I think that's a win. I think Kentucky's solid, but I think Ole Miss is better than Kentucky. Yeah. I think the same thing about going to Williams-Brice Stadium to play in South Carolina on September the 5th. That place is tricky to play. I'd be curious to know what time at night or during the day that they're playing.
It gets rowdy at night there.
Yeah. I'm curious to see that point spread. I may not pick Ole Miss in the points based on when that game is being played and how South Carolina looks through the first 6 weeks, but they should win that game.
Right.
We're going to talk about LSU in a minute. We're going to talk about Oklahoma in a minute. November 2nd at Arkansas. Again, that place is weird. I hate going and playing in Fayetteville. They always circle one game. We talked about this when we previewed Arkansas 2 or 3 weeks ago. They are the best team in the world at circling one game. And if that's the game that they circle, then you're going to get everything you want out of Arkansas. Ole Miss is better than Arkansas. That should be a win. We're going to talk about Georgia later. Ole Miss on cousin David's birthday, 11/23, at Florida. Ole Miss should beat them. I'm counting that a win. So that leaves us with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 wins. Oh, and I'll save Mississippi State, but I think they should beat Mississippi State. So 9. I can get Ole Miss to 9 wins and feel like I'm being pretty conservative. Do you
Sure.
disagree with any of those games so far?
I don't. Like you said, we talked about this. I belabored this last year before the Arkansas game. Weird things always happen. Ole Miss, Arkansas, but Ole Miss is a much better team, and it shouldn't be kooky this year. So that's the only one. 9 wins seems very realistic.
We're going to talk about each of these games as it comes up, week by week. But as of right now, I can't predict chaos, and I don't base games predicting chaos. It very well could happen that night in Fayetteville, but I don't predict that. So I'm looking at Ole Miss at 9 wins, with the swing games being at LSU, Oklahoma at home, although I don't really think so, in Georgia at home. So I think Ole Miss will be favored in 10 games this year. I think that's what most betting sites have it at right now. If you wanted to get early lines on any of these games, I think Ole Miss will be favored in 10 games. The only exception being Georgia coming to Oxford, and then on the best college football day of the year, September the 12th. No, I'm sorry, October the 12th at LSU. I think Ole Miss will probably be underdogged in that game if LSU holds serve to that point. So I've already got Ole Miss at over 9.5. I think that Ole Miss wins one of LSU and Georgia. I just think that Ole Miss has gone all in. I think that you can tell from the portal, you're not going to have Jackson Dart next year. You're not going to have Trey Harris. All those guys that I said that they begged to come back and paid top dollar to come back, they're all gone. You're starting over. This is the year. The schedule lines up. The experience is there. You went and got playmakers to try to take you over the edge, and you've got help in the trenches so you don't get pushed around. Like, this is the year Ole Miss goes all in. I want to think that if there's one loss out there, I want to say it's at LSU more than it is Georgia at home, because it's at home, and Ole Miss fans and everybody knows that Georgia's the measuring stick. I think you get up more for Georgia at home, especially at that point. If you got one loss and Georgia comes to the house and you're playing for everything.
You say that, that used to be the same case with Alabama, and Ole Miss just finds a way to fall flat and get behind and not able to come back and beat Alabama. I'll concede of the two. Like, I see this as a 10-win team. 2 losses is probably 3 would be the absolute most losses I can see on this schedule, with the kooky Mississippi State game or losing LSU. Maybe something weird happens at South Carolina. But Georgia's Georgia's head and shoulders better than everybody, man. And like wasn't it last year that Ole Miss raced out to like a 14-0 lead, and then Alabama just came back and just imposed their will for 3.5
No,
quarters?
I don't remember.
Was it 2 years
I don't
ago?
remember what. Yeah, but there's lightning in a bottle that can be captured in one season, and I just feel like Lane always treated the Alabama game differently. That game was weird for Lane all the time, because he pressed in the Alabama games because he wanted so badly to beat Nick Saban and prove his worth compared to Nick Saban. I don't think he does that for Georgia. I think there's not a game on the schedule that I don't think he don't just go let it all hang out, because this is his shot. I mean, at Ole Miss, nobody is here trying to preach that Ole Miss is starting a dynasty here. I'm just preaching that this is your shot. This is your shot. You've got 12 spots to get into the playoff, and you've got the best team that you've ever had. So that's my thoughts. And given that, I think they've circled a couple games. I think that Georgia game is going to be an absolute dogfight.
I don't disagree. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to be a bad game or that Georgia's going to blow them out. I think it's going to be like, I know what I'm doing November the 9th. I'm going to be, depending on when State's playing, I'm going to be watching that game, at least on the, YouTube TV has this wonderful feature where you can have multiple games playing. And if they're at the same time, I'm going to be watching both of those games. Because I agree. I think that game, if this schedule shakes out like it could, a favorable Ole Miss schedule, could be for a berth in the SEC championship game. 100%. Right. I could see that. But yes, Georgia is still the measuring stick for SEC football.
Yeah, I think that that Ole Miss is good. The only thing that I'm scared of, outside of a collapse, is if Ole Miss does go 10-2, I'm worried that the 10 wins aren't good enough. You're really looking at resumes at that point to get into the playoff, and I'm really scared that Ole Miss really needs Oklahoma or Florida or Mississippi State, Kentucky, someone to end up being good.
I agree with that, because this is the first year of the 12-team playoff, right? And so you're going to have all your conference champions, but you're going to have a lot of teams that have a little bit stronger schedule here. So you're going to need a handful of these teams, because right now, like, there's a world where the only ranked teams you play are LSU and Georgia, right? I mean, there's
I would
a real
say Oklahoma.
chance.
I'd put
And
Oklahoma.
like Oklahoma, we don't know, because when I get to my state,
They're
preview here in a
preseason
minute,
ranked.
they are.
They're preseason ranked. So,
and there's a lot to talk about with Oklahoma. We touched on it briefly. I'll talk about it a little bit in a minute. But there's a world where you only play 2 ranked teams. I mean, realistically, probably 3, but it could only be 2 ranked teams. So you're going to need some help if you don't run the table on this schedule.
Right. All right. I'm done. Let's talk about Mississippi State.
Yeah, so for all the consistency and all the things that Ole Miss has brought back and all the things that Ole Miss is doing, State is the polar opposite. You know, and I'm not making excuses for last year. Last year was just bad. It was a bad situation. Mike Leach passed away in December of 2022, is well documented. Zach Arnett inherited an impossible situation in Starkville and didn't do much to make it better. He said he wasn't going to replace the air raid, and that's exactly what he did. He said he wasn't going to make changes on defense, and that's exactly what he did. It just ended up being a colossal just failure on both sides of the ball in every way possible, in what was a very tough situation to manage after Coach Leach's death. But bygones are bygones. Zach Arnett is gone. He is now enough defensive analyst at Ole Miss, of all places, but he has moved on to other pastures. Insert Jeff Levy. You know,
not greener pastures.
No, just other pastures. Just other pastures. You like that? Just other pastures. Insert Jeff Levy. You know, Drew, when I think I told you when that first hire happened, I was like a 5 out of 10 on it. Like, I think it's a good hire. I think it's a strong hire. I was a little disappointed that we're an SEC program. How we didn't go, poach a sitting Power 5 coach or a sitting head coach somewhere. I was all in on Jamie Chadwell at Liberty, and I think there was some mutual interest there, but couldn't get it to the finish line because he's got an incredible cush situation at Liberty. Like, I don't think he'll ever leave.
No.
But Levy is a good hire. Levy is what should have followed Mike Leach. Another offensive whiz, an offensive just genius, really, who took Oklahoma. I was looking at this earlier. Oklahoma was like top 10 in every statistical category just about on offense last year. Now, they had Dylan Gabriel, who's a phenomenal quarterback. He's gone on to Oregon and is going to be an incredible quarterback.
Largely the reason why they're preseason ranked in the top 5.
Right, it's Dylan Gabriel. They were like top 6. They were 6th in EPA per play. They were like 10th in yards per play. They were 8th in successful play rates. Like, their offense was a juggernaut last year. Their defense held them back, but that's a different story. Levy's now come to Starkville, and we've lost a lot of the team from last year. It's not going to look the same. There is no Woody Marks. There is no Tulu, who's our most explosive player. Justin Robinson has graduated. There's a whole new look on the offensive side of the ball. And, Drew, I would venture to say it's deeper this year than it was last year. We've got 3 incoming 4-star freshmen. One of them was a 5-star until he committed to Mississippi State, which is a common theme. Unless you commit to one of the big boys, there's a good chance you're going to lose a star. And Braylon Stonka Burnside. He came in after his senior year in Starkville, where he had 61 catches, 1,067 yards, and 17 touchdowns. Guy was just an absolute machine
in 11
Starkville.
games. Yeah.
Just an absolute stud. Combine that with elite speed and Mario Craver, who was the co-MVP of the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game, with Michael Van Buren, who's also at Mississippi State as a backup quarterback. And then you get J.J. Harrell, who is an incredible slot receiver. Like, they're talking about just maturity beyond his years, a great route runner. And I know we're in the day and age where the transfer portal matters more. But in a place like Mississippi State, when you're coming in, you're trying to make changes, transfer portal is going to be tough. You're losing a lot of guys. Winning the state and getting the best players in the state still matters for a program like us trying to find identity. And these guys fit Jeff Levy's offense really well. I think the best thing, don't hear what I'm not saying. I appreciate what Will Rogers did for us. Like, Will Rogers was a great air raid quarterback. He was not a good pro-style quarterback last year. The best thing we did was we went and got former Big 12 title game MVP his freshman year in Blake Shapen from the Baylor Bears. He set the passing record for both yards, touchdowns, and completions in a half in that first half against Oklahoma State back in 2021. He averaged 7.5 yards per pass play over 2 seasons at Baylor. Will Rogers' best season was 6 yards per pass play. That's 1.5 yards further, which matters a great deal in college football. I think, as great as Ole Miss's wide receiver room is, Mississippi State, this is one of the better ones we've had in a long time. Creed Whittemore is coming back. He's going to be one of the veteran leaders as a sophomore. He's a great route runner, a red zone menace. I think he had like 4 touchdowns inside the 15 last year from the slot receiver, just an absolute menace. The offensive line is going to be retooled. It's going to be a little bit different. We got a couple great transfers, immediate impact transfer center, Ethan Minter from North Texas. He was an absolute stud. Talk about how high his IQ was. He graded out at an 80 in PFF in the transfer portal. Just a really tough kid and a good offensive lineman. Also, we got the offensive tackles. I've seen Pounders from Memphis. He's going to be an immediate player. He's going to anchor the right side of the offensive line, going to be immediately starting. For me, the guy I'm watching on offense is going to be Stonka Burnside. I mean, the guy has talent like nobody else. He's had a great fall camp. We're returning a couple running backs. Jeremy Pittman's going to be kind of the leader out of that backfield. He was the one that kind of took over towards the end of the year as Woody was getting hurt late. He's more the bruising style back, but I think he's going to fit this offense really well. The biggest thing for us on offense is just going to be different. We're going to have a lot of different looks. We've got a lot of athletes now. We're bringing back the tight end position, which we haven't had in Starkville in the last few years. Right. But having a competent passing offense is going to be different. I think we can score. We're going to be able to score with most teams that we play. Offensively, we're going to be vastly better than we were last year. We can't get a whole lot worse. We were around 100 to 110 in every single offensive category last year because Arnett tried to play a pro-style offense with Kevin Barbay as the OC after he said, we're going to stick with the air raid, and all the air raid players stayed, and none of them can run a pro-style offense.
Yeah,
that sucks.
You knew Mississippi State's goose was cooked in that first game when he rolled out Will Rogers to his weak side to throw one
across his body, and it was ugly.
Yes,
it was ugly. But the receiver room's going to be good. We've got former UTEP transfer Kelly Akahari, I think is how you say his name, Akari, something like that. He was a 1,000-yard receiver. He had 21.5 yards per catch at UTEP last year. He's a great, just like take the top off of a defense kind of guy to allow Stonka and Creed, JJ to run underneath. And so the offense is going to be good. I think our offense is going to look so much different than last year and actually be entertaining. That was the hardest part about watching state games last year. It was just boring football. It was literally 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Like it was 3 and out. I don't know how we beat Arizona and some of the teams that we did win with that just inept offense. It was awful. My problem is I have some concerns on defense. It's Levy's first year in the SEC. We've done a great job hitting the transfer portal, getting some good players in on offense as freshmen. Defense was pretty pedestrian last year, and we lost everybody from that team last year. Our top returners are Isaac Smith and Corey Ellington. Both of them are Isaac Smith's our strong safety. Corey Ellington's playing free safety. Isaac Smith from Itawamba, just down the road from us. We've got some guys that can play on the back end, but we lost a lot. Jaden Crumity is gone from the defensive line. He was a 3-year starter. We lost, like the SEC's top 2 leading tacklers in Jet Johnson and Bookie Watson. Both of them got pro contracts. They're
Jet
gone.
Johnson is not coming back for a 10th season.
Not come back for a 10th season, man. Him and Austin Williams that also played at Mississippi State forever. They're finally gone.
What about that Richie guy that played middle linebacker?
Yeah, Richie Brown. Yeah, he was there forever. He played for the Bills for like 3 or 4 years. No, finally gone. I think Isaac Smith is going to be the player to watch on defense this year. He is a stud in the making at strong safety, but we're going to need people to step up on the defensive line. Last year, we were the 10th worst defense in all of college football at quarterback pressures, getting pressure less than 30% of the time, which is terrible. We are going to switch back to that 3-3-5, which was successful under Arnett early. But we're going to need that guy. Like, we're going to need somebody to step up and be that dude as a pass rusher. Because in a 3-3-5, I can get real technical about it, but one of your three linebackers can put his hand in the dirt and be a quarterback and pressure the quarterback when needed. And so we need somebody to step up. JP Purvis, John Lewis are two guys that might do that. John Lewis is a 3-year backup linebacker. JP Purvis played a lot last year alongside Jet. But we did get a transfer as an anchor in Stone Blanton. He's from Jackson, Mississippi. He went to South Carolina, started every game for him last year at middle linebacker as a freshman, transferred to get back closer to home, and is going to anchor the middle of that defense. He's a player, but we're going to need some help. JP and John are going to have to step up big time. The biggest thing for me is, again, watching what we can do on offense. Levy comes in, it's an immediately exciting offense. There's going to be a lot of new wrinkles that we can do that we didn't do last year. You know, we're no longer hopefully going to be just that in and out slant. And it's just like we need some depth to this offense. And if you watched Oklahoma last year, they love the deep ball. And Blake Shapen has the arm to be able to throw that. I've watched some Shapen highlights this week. They popped up on Twitter. The guy has a good arm. He has struggled with some durability. He's torn both ACLs and had a handful of concussions. If he can stay healthy, the talent is there, but he hasn't played a full season yet. So I'm nervous about that. But we got, again, Chris Parsons. He played last year towards the end of the year. Even got a start. He played a lot against Ole Miss because Will Rogers was hurt. Guy's got potential. Mike Van Buren, MVB, is going to be a great quarterback for Mississippi State. He's just a freshman. We got to see what he's got. But Levy has got some tools in there. I'm not expecting us to go out and win 8, 9, 10 ball games and be a force in the SEC. I just want to see us be competitive. After watching a year when we were the least competitive football team I've seen in a long time, we were a reflection of our head coach. All Zach Arnett wanted to do was stand there and scowl. He would take his headset off, wouldn't even freaking coach. Like, at least Levy is passionate. I've seen some videos from practice and watched it. He coaches these guys up. Like, he's in the mix. They're having fun. There's not that disengagement. Again, I appreciate the impossible situation that Zach Arnett inherited last year, but he looked so disengaged, and our team looked disengaged in the game. Most of the time, by midway through the second quarter, we were beat. We were checked out. It was just like, I'm cleaning my condo, doing other things, not even watching how the game plays out.
I can sympathize with that because Matt Luke's big thing was that he was always squinting up watching the scoreboard. He was just every time the camera was on, he wasn't even looking at the field. He's just watching the Jumbotron. And you're just like, luckily you only had Arnett for 1 year. So
God,
I am high on Levy. I cheer for him as an offensive coordinator for 2 years at Ole Miss. Mm-hmm. He came from UCF. Nobody really knew who he was. Yeah. But immediately when Lane Kiffin turned that offensive around, and I do think that he is a dynamic offensive mind, and I do think that he is capable of taking the players and the commodities that he has and using them to his advantage. And I think that is the most the single greatest trait that a coach can have is to be adaptable to the players that you have on roster. And so I do not think that State's going to be terrible this year. I do think that, as I said earlier, I do think players win games, and the roster at Mississippi State just doesn't compete with the top half of the SEC.
It doesn't.
But it's year one. And so you hope as when Lane Kiffin took over for Ole Miss, I was in the dumps, and I can understand year one is not only about wins and losses, but it's about seeing the path forward. And so that's what you look forward to as a State fan.
Especially, with what he's been able to do with freshmen, with some of the transfer portal. I just, like you said, I want to see competitive football. I want to see that path forward. He's a very creative offensive mind. He's got an opportunity to really turn this program around. He's done a good job bringing athletes in. But, Drew, as much as Ole Miss's schedule is manageable this year, State's schedule is not, man. It is one of the hardest in the SEC. We've got Pro Football Focus has us as 12th strength of schedule overall. I would say by the end of the year, it's going to be even higher than that with some of these teams we've got to play and how and where we play them. They projected us to have 6 wins. I was going through the schedule earlier. Look, like I'm a homer. It's 4.5. It's 4.5. I'm wearing the colors. I'm decked out, man. I bleed maroon and white. If you follow the show anytime, like even last year during the doldrums of the season, I was showing up on this show every week, hyping up Mississippi State. at least trying to. So I am a little bit biased, but there is a path to 7-5. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. Like Uncle Buck says, we look at the games we know we're going to win. We're going to beat Eastern Kentucky on opening weekend. That's one win. I feel like we went to Arizona 2 years ago and won. Arizona State's not good. It's a long trip out there, but I think we go to Arizona State.
It's a hard road trip. Yeah,
it's a hard road trip. It's long, but I still think that's a winnable game. I'm going to count that as a win. I think Toledo is a win. So that's 3 wins, and then you got UMass is for sure a win. That's 4. I'm going to count Arkansas. Arkansas's bad. We beat them last year. They got objectively worse. We've gotten better. So that's 1, 2, 3. That's 5 wins right there. You're at the over right there as I see it. Now, for me, the season hinges on September 21st, the Florida game. You've got 3 straight cupcakes to start the season. And I'm assuming we're going to be 3-0 going into that game. Then you got Florida coming to Mississippi State. Billy Napier's on the hot seat. Florida is so hot and cold. Graham Mertz, we don't know what we really have in him. That defense has lost everything in the transfer portal. All intents and purposes is that Florida's not going to be good and Billy Napier is going to be fired. The last time that happened, Ron Zook got crooned. And those of you who've been following the program for a while know that Ron Zook was on the hot seat in Florida. They came to Starkville. Jarius Norwood went absolutely bananas on that defense. Mississippi State won pulling away, and Ron Zook had to find another way home because he got fired as the Florida head football coach. Coming into that game, that to me is where our season hinges. If we beat Florida and we go into the Texas game 4-0, we've got a ton of momentum. We're going to get murdered at Texas. We got a bye week. We're going to get murdered at Georgia. But you've got some momentum because then you go into A&M at 4-2. 4-2 at A&M. I am picking. There's going to be one team. Pro Football Focus said this. Athlon Sports said this. Everybody has said Mississippi State is going to upset one team they're not supposed to this year. To me, that's when Texas A&M comes to Starkville on the 19th. We're 3-2 all time against A&M at home in Starkville, including 3-1 in the last 4 meetings. We won the last time we played in Starkville. We beat Jimbo Fisher 42-24. And I think if we win at A&M, you're sitting at 5-2 based on how I've seen this schedule falling out, right? You beat Florida, you beat A&M, you got a ton of momentum. We're better than Arkansas. We beat Arkansas. You're 6-2. Like if we're 6-2 at that point, like build a statue of Jeff Lebby, right? Like rename it Davis Wade Field, Jeff Lebby Field. Because then you can beat UMass and you're sitting really pretty to finish out the season in a very brutal way, right? So we're sitting we're 5-2, 6, we're 7-2 right there. You lose to Tennessee, you lose to Missouri, and let's say you lose to Ole Miss. You're 7-5, and you're going to a decent bowl game in year 1 of Jeff Lebby. You've got a clear path to getting better. You made significant strides from 5-7 last year. And weird things happen, man. What if we get kooky and we go to Ole Miss and we win on the day after Thanksgiving and we finish the season? Maybe that makes us 7-5. Maybe that makes us 8-4. Weird things happen in the Egg Bowl. I think 7-5 is our ceiling. I think there's a real path to 7-5, and it hinges on Florida. Because if you lose to Florida, you don't have another really winnable game until Arkansas on the 26th, because A&M's a toss-up. I'm calling it an upset because they should be better than us based on the talent that they have. As you so eloquently put it a few minutes ago, players win ball games. Florida, to me, if we can beat Florida and go to Austin 4-0, I think we're looking at a much more successful season than people are projecting. I think we finish somewhere around 6-6. I think we win a couple games we're not supposed to. Again, I could see losing to Texas, Florida, A&M, Tennessee, Missouri, and Ole Miss as 6 losses. I mean, it could really happen. You win one of those, you're 7-5. You call it a successful season.
So what I'd say is the best path of success for Mississippi State. Obviously, yes, you've got to win that Arizona State game if you're going to get to 7. That's tricky, but, whatever. The teams I would put in the same tier as Mississippi State in the SEC, if you're talking the top tier being Georgia, LSU, Ole Miss, Alabama, Missouri. And then the second tier, if you put them in 3 groups, the 16 teams in 3 groups, Mississippi State's in the group with Florida, with Arkansas, with
South Carolina, Vanderbilt.
South Carolina, but I was just looking at your schedule.
Arkansas.
If you dominate your group, I guess, rather, if you go beat Florida, you go beat Arkansas, and then I think you get to 7 wins because that Arizona State's there. Your non-conference is not terrible. I think you look at the path that Ole Miss went through last year. Ole Miss, like we said, went 11-2 last year, but every single thing that could have went Ole Miss's way last year did. And I think that's to get to 7-5, to get to 8-4. I mean, everything's got to go perfectly. Ole Miss, there was a ball. Jaden Daniels had a ball in the air to beat Ole Miss in Oxford. Ole Miss blocked the game-tying field goal against A&M last year. Arkansas was driving to tie late in that game last year. So 11-2 doesn't always mean domination, and 7-5 may not always look like, you are better than everybody else, but you've got to be better in situations. You've got to be better late in games. And if you ask me what game Mississippi State could upset, because it's a first-year coach, because I feel like first-year coaches, if they get kind of rolling, they get better quicker than everybody else. You see the trajectory of a team with a first-year coach climb more than you see just like a good team. Like Alabama, they're just good all the time. You're going to see Mississippi State climb if this goes well. Look at that home game against Missouri. I think that Missouri coming to Starkville, which I can't tell you the last time that team came to Starkville for a game. It's a different beast if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
And if that team is, like you said, 7 wins, 6 wins when Missouri comes to town, then, you just go lose at Tennessee. You come home to Missouri with 6 or 7 wins, the place is going to be an environment.
Raucous. Yeah. And it's different when them cowbells are humming. And if I'm not mistaken, that's kind of let me see before I put my foot in my mouth.
It's a bad week of football typically that week.
It is. Well, I mean, they played Oklahoma, and it's not like I thought because there was a stretch where they had like Georgia, A&M, Alabama, but they play South Carolina at South Carolina. So they play home for Oklahoma, at South Carolina, at Mississippi State, home for Arkansas. So it's a back-to-back road trip for Missouri.
Yeah. So I can see that being the game if I had to pick one.
Yeah. So again, like a 5-7 season, like you don't hear what I'm not saying. A 5-7 season would still be successful if you're competitive. It can be if we're competitive. If you lose to Texas by 10 points, if you lose to A&M late 24-21, right? You go to Tennessee and they beat you late with a touchdown and a field goal, beat you by 10. Like if you're competitive in those games, let's say you're in the game. 2 years ago when we played at Georgia, we were down 17-14 at halftime and we lost 34-14, right? Like we were in it at halftime. We weren't going to win, but we were competitive at halftime. If we can show that kind of improvement this year, then dude, like I'm going to be all in on the Levy limousine next year. We're going to ride that thing till the wheels fall off because as bad as we were last year, somehow getting to 5-7 was a miracle. We were just not competitive. And like, I'm just hoping like that Eastern Kentucky game, like I don't even know what their mascot is. Like, no offense to those guys. I hope we beat the absolute crap out of them. Like go out and hang 52-0 or 52-3, 49-0. Just flex in that first game and like really not open up the playbook because you need to save some stuff for that Florida game. We don't show everything, but go flex as a better team, and you're going to win this fan base over just like that because we sat there and we watched Arnett be just completely non-competitive week after week after week, and we're tired of it.
Yeah, you look at if Mississippi State wants a way to sell out or have a boom in season tickets for the 25-26 season, be a competitive 6-6 and go win a bowl game.
That's it. And you said,
that gets
Missouri,
people excited.
Upset Missouri, upset A&M, upset somebody at home. Yeah, it's the Independence Bowl or the Liberty Bowl, but you backdoor into a 6-6 bowl game. But like you said, NIL, the Bulldog Initiative will go through the roof. Season tickets will go through the roof. And there'll be a buzz about this team heading into the 25 season that we're kind of getting this year just because of the new coach. Right. But you can have some real momentum going into 25 and 26. So we'll see.
We'll see. Everything's on the horizon. This episode, if there's a theme, it's about new, the first chapter of a bunch of books that we're talking about. We talked about the start of fantasy football. We've started talking about the start of the NBA season. Rusty just bought a new truck. Like everything for this show is just talking about bright futures. And if you want to be optimists like us, the correct way to live life,
Yes.
there's a path there for all teams.
Yep.
And so that's what we do here. We don't just sit around and sulk. That doesn't make for good shows, and that's just not our personalities.
Yeah.
But we appreciate everybody for sticking to the hour and 21-minute mark and letting
Hey.
us have our moment talking about Ole Miss.
I am proud of us because at this point, last year we were just starting. Like we were just starting to get wound up. So I am proud of us. Kudos to you, sir. We kept this thing respectable. We talked about our teams. We kept it civil. We didn't get aggressive or upset. I think we both have similar opinions about our teams. I think Ole Miss is going to be great. You think State has a chance to be competitive, but we just don't know. Look at us. I'm proud of us. We've come a long way in our friendship here in year like 11.
Well, just wait till the week of Thanksgiving.
Then it gets in oh my God. And like I have smoked a cigar and sunglasses on this podcast after winning the Egg Bowl. So it gets ugly in November. So hang around for that.
So appreciate everybody sticking with us as we talked Grizzlies, as we talked our weeks, as we talked about Ole Miss and Mississippi State football. Stick with us. We're only going to get into more football coming up because it kicks off this Saturday, tomorrow, as you're listening to this.
Let's go tomorrow. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks again for tuning in. If you're still here, we appreciate y'all. I know our families. Maggie's still here. Haley's still here. Appreciate y'all being here. But if you're not in our family, you're still listening. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you sticking around this long, but you still don't get a refund.
Yeah, because with a $2 sports show, you always get what you pay for. Have a great weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next Friday.
Thank you for listening to the $2 Sports Show. If you enjoyed this episode, leave a rating and a review wherever you download your podcasts. Also, like and subscribe to Bluff City Media's YouTube page. For comprehensive coverage of all things Memphis sports, head over to www.bluffcitymedia.co and find out how you can become an insider. We will see you back here next time.